Welcome back to News Talk. While the baseball playoffs move to the second round, the Washington Nationals, a team widely predicted to be in the mix this postseason, are at home, focusing on next year, looking for a new skipper. The names of several potential successors to Matt Williams have surfaced, and Washington Post reporter James Wagner joins us now with more on this. It's good to have you with us. Thanks very much for coming in.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Are they fully ramped up? Is the search for a new manager or replacement for Matt Williams the focus of this organization right now?
I think that's the priority, because I think, once you hire the manager, it kind of sets everything else in stone from there. Roster decisions, managers involved with things like that. Obviously, that operates more at the front office level, the general manager. But having a manager in place, that's the first step. It's such a huge decision. It's not just for this year, but that's a decision that impacts the next several seasons. So that is the priority number one. Interviews started on Monday. They're continuing through the week, and they will continue into next week and beyond.
I want to talk with you in a moment about some of the names,
Sure.
some of the people who are in the mix, and maybe what traits the team is looking for, what skill set or temperament type, what have you. But let's talk first about what this job represents, the opening, the opportunity, I guess, is what I'm really trying to get at here, to come to Washington, to come to a team with a great lineup.
Sure.
Admittedly, they underperformed this year, and even when they do get to the playoffs, they're not going as deep, obviously, as fans would like. But this strikes me as, is this the best job open in baseball right now?
As of right now, there are 4 openings. There's some teams still in playoffs, but as the 4 openings, it's the most attractive job. San Diego, the Marlins, and Seattle also have openings for a manager, but DC is the most attractive. Has the best foundation to still be a contending team next year. Guys from Bryce Harper to Jason Worth to Ryan Zimmerman, and then Max Scherzer and Strasburg, in the rotation. What teams need a manager that have that type of talent? Usually it's, they're usually a rebuilding team that's firing everyone and doesn't have the talent that needs a new manager. So they're in a good position where this is the most attractive job, and they'll have to pick kind of the litter of the best guys.
Along with the general manager, who's, none of us are perfect, but he's highly regarded in the game, and an ownership group that has proven that when the right opportunity comes along, they'll spend some money.
Yes, absolutely. Rizzo, General Manager Mike Rizzo, there were some things that went wrong this year, from the bullpen to maybe not, adding things to the roster when they needed it throughout the season, and that kind of led to the downfall in the second half. The front office did play a role in kind of everything that went bad this season, but he's done a good job of ensuring talent, is here in place for the future. There are some young guys ready to take place of some of the departing free agents like Ian Desmond or Jordan Zimmerman, some young guys that he acquired over the years to kind of backfill the minors, top prospects that can be ready to fill those positions. So that's what makes this team so attractive, because they still have that mix of the older guys and the younger guys, for a future manager to take over.
Take us through some of the folks that the team has talked to already, or who your reporting suggests will have interviews with the club soon.
So far they've had 3 interviews that we know publicly, or that I know of. On Monday they interviewed a guy named Phil Nevin, who's the AAA manager for the Diamondbacks.
Nevin?
Phil Nevin, yes, absolutely. He's a former player, a former infielder, and then became a manager in the minors. And then they continued on with the bigger names, kind of the ones that are more interesting because they offer more experience. They're guys that have been around the game a long time. Dusty Baker interviewed on Wednesday. He's the former longtime manager of the Giants, the Reds, and the Cubs. He's a 3-time manager of the year, very experienced, been to the playoffs with every team. He interviewed on Wednesday. And on Thursday, Bud Black, the former manager of the San Diego Padres, interviewed for the Nationals job too. He was a former major league pitcher, a former pitching coach. He knows pitching very well, very known for his kind of laid back, personable style. And then next week, Ron Gardenhire, the former longtime manager of the Minnesota Twins, is expected to go for an interview. There are also other guys that are kind of in the mix that the team has drawn interest from. Ron Wotus is a longtime bench coach of the San Francisco Giants. He's been around 3 World Series teams. He has interest of them. And then there's Alex Cora, former, he's never managed before. He could come in soon. Those kind of guys on those levels. There's a wide range, but of the biggest names I've mentioned, kind of experience is the biggest takeaway of those guys.
In terms of the issues that we believe hurt the team, in terms of how, I guess with Matt Williams there were 2 things that, at least in terms of what we know publicly, were issues. His dealing was his what critics say was a paint-by-numbers style in terms of how you utilize the bullpen, and then his interactions with individual players. Did he lose the clubhouse? Could he have been better with that aspect of things? Do you think the the Matt Williams experience colors the search.
Absolutely. I think they handed a team that had the potential to compete for a World Series to a guy that had never done this before. Matt Williams had been a coach before, but had never been a major league manager. This was his first time around. And the thinking then was that getting a rookie manager, he could kind of learn and grow with the team, and maybe that it didn't really happen as much. So I guess this time it does color their experience, because some of the guys they've interviewed are very experienced guys that have been around the block, guys that have been to the playoffs, guys that have won, and I think that helps. It helps with relationships in the clubhouse when these guys know how to deal, these managers or candidates know how to deal with big personalities. Dusty Baker's dealt with everything from, Barry Bonds to Jeff Kent to Brandon Phillips, big tough personalities to deal with at past places. So yes, I think it does color. I think that I would see them going in the way of an experienced veteran manager to kind of fill the position.
Sorry, sorry about that.
No
Were you surprised that Dusty Baker's name came up?
No, not at all, actually. A little surprised in the sense that 2 years ago, when they did hire Matt Williams, he reached out to the team and told him he was interested in the position. But Matt Williams ended up with the job. And funny that Dusty Baker was Matt Williams' manager when he was with the Giants, and Williams saw him as a mentor. And then now, 2 years later, after Williams gets fired, they do bring Dusty Baker in for an interview and consider him a serious candidate this time. So I think in that sense it was a little surprising. But in terms of experience, I mean, he has been around. He was a major league manager for 20 years. He knows how to deal with big personalities. He knows how to deal with a team from beginning to end, the top to the bottom. He's seen it all. So I think he is a serious candidate and not someone to be discounted.
When Matt Williams left, his entire team, his entire coaching team left with him, right? So the assumption is, and maybe this is what typically happens in baseball, the new manager wants his own bench coach, third base coach, pitching coach, the whole thing, right?
Absolutely.
That's
yes,
the norm?
Yes, absolutely. And last time, so when Matt Williams inherited, got the Nats job, he inherited pretty much the coaching staff from before. Because I think they hoped that a new and experienced manager could have the existing coaching staff that already knew the players. It would help him. In this case, I think after a really disappointing season, they just axed everybody. Some of them have gotten jobs back in the organization in the minor leagues. Could still apply for other jobs if they get them. But presumably the next guy will get his chance to pick, and that could include some of the existing guys from before. But he will have his preference because that's what you need. You need guys that guys know how they work to help you do your job. So
watching the Mets advance and watching the Cubs topple the Cardinals, who I thought were the most likely team to come out of the National League and make it to the World Series, I've got to believe that there are that maybe the majority of the players on the Nationals roster are sitting home thinking that should be us.
Yeah, I mean, I think they all thought that the division. I mean, the NL East was not expected to be very tough this year. And you look at the results. The Braves, Marlins, and the Phillies were among the worst teams in the National League this year. It was not a very strong division. So I think they expected, despite our talent, whatever might go wrong, we have enough talent to supersede whatever will happen, injuries, bad performance. But it just didn't happen. So, and I think maybe they, in some sense, didn't take the Mets as seriously as they should have. The Mets have really young pitching, maybe arrived a little earlier than thought, and some of those July trades that they made to get guys like Yoenis Cespedes, Tyler Clippard, really boosted the team, and they were in the second half. The Mets were a completely different team.
Absolutely. Talk about getting hot at the right time.
Yeah.
We only have 25 seconds left. Do you have a sense of when Rizzo hopes to have a decision by, in terms of all the things that happen in the offseason?
I would say this one will take longer. This managerial search will be more extensive than last time, something Rizzo admitted himself. So I think that they will look at more candidates, interview more guys. So I don't know. I think they'll still be interviewing guys next week. There are still some potential candidates on some of the teams in the playoffs now. So we'll see. Maybe within the next month, within the next 3 weeks.
James Wagner covering the Nationals manager search for the Washington Post. We'll talk with you again as the search moves forward.
No problem.
We
Thank you very
appreciate your time. Back with the program. Back with more News Talk in a moment.